worshipper. That's Jack Morrissey. We can talk about Nathaniel Friedman, who writes for GQ magazine, a magazine that used to be mildly amusing, a magazine that would tell you which shade of brogues to wear this fall, but which has become a voice box of the radical left, who was kind enough to tweet the following 3 words: dox em all, meaning reveal the identities, the home addresses of these children. To what end? I leave that to your imagination. I could go on. Chris Evans, the man who plays Captain America of all things, Alyssa Milano, Rosie O'Donnell. I'm not even going to say on live radio what she said. Zach Braff of the NBC show Scrubs. On and on and on. Deborah Messing. Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle's actually a decent actor. If I see a movie with Don Cheadle in it, I think, okay, I might watch that. But he too attacked the children. And of course, we can always rely upon that radical leftist alleged comedian, Patton Oswalt. We're used to that, are we not? I was in the White House. I represented the president. They attacked not only me, they attacked my wife. They attacked my teenage son when he was high school age. And they attacked the reputation of my dead mother, people who called themselves journalists. So do we just get inured to this? Do we just say, well, that's just the left? The second question, what about those who say they're conservatives, but who piled on? In my piece, I write about S.E. Cupp, an individual who says she's a conservative, who has a TV show on CNN, which by itself is an oxymoron. No self-respecting conservative would host a television show on CNN. She had on the alleged elder of the Omaha tribe, Nathaniel Phillips, on her show. She attacked the children. She lied about the children, or was so ignorant she didn't take the time to watch the video of what happened. I have a massive team here at First America of 3 people. 3 people work for me, and I could tell you instantly what the reality was. Why? Because I took the time to actually watch the video. I know, really, quite amazing thinking there. But she didn't. And she called them racists. She said this man was surrounded by the children from the Covington Catholic School. None of it was true. She apologized. But Essie, and I invite you onto the show, you can even call us on 833-33-GORKA, G-O-R-K-A. That's 833-334-6752. Essie, what can you do to go back in time to lessen the rhetoric, the encouragement that you gave to other people to instigate the death threats, the doxing? Is there anything that you can do? No, there isn't. So is it just enough to say you're sorry? The lessons we must learn come from one person right now. And that person is Nicholas Sandmann, the junior, the high school junior, who stood there smiling, resisting, as this so-called tribal elder banged his drum in his face. If I have the time, I'd like to read the full statement he made. But right now, I just want to read a few sentences from Nick Sandmann's statement. The protesters said hateful things. They called us racists, bigots, white crackers, faggots, and incest kids. I never understood why either of the 2 groups, meaning the black Israelites and the indigenous Americans, why the 2 groups of protesters were engaging with us, or exactly what they were protesting at the Lincoln Memorial. We were simply there to meet a bus, not become central players in a media spectacle. This is the first time in my life I've ever encountered any sort of public protest, let alone this kind of confrontation or demonstration. With regards to Nathan Phillips, with his drum, this is what Nicholas Sandman has to say. He locked eyes with me and approached me, coming within inches of my face. He played his drum the entire time he was in my face. I never interacted with this protester. I did not speak to him. During the period of drumming, a member of the protesters' entourage began yelling at a fellow student that we stole their land and that we should go back to Europe. I am being called every name in the book, including a racist, and I will not stand for this mob-like character assassination of my family's name. My parents were not on the trip, and I strive to represent my family in a respectful way in all public settings. I said a prayer that the situation would not get out of hand. I have received physical and death threats via social media, as well as hateful insults. One person has threatened to harm me at school, and one person claims to live in my neighborhood. My parents are receiving death threats and professional threats because of the social media mob that was formed over this issue, thanks in part to fake conservatives like S.E. Cupp. This young man has a great deal to teach all Americans, especially the day after Martin Luther King Day. I'm Sebastion Gorka. I want to hear from you. What are your expectations after this scene goes? And delighted to have our first guest, Tom Fitton, the president of none other than Judicial Watch, the individual organization that does more than any other investigative group to push back on the lies and bring you the truth. Follow him on Twitter at Tom Fitton, Fitton. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, Seb, good to be with you. Congratulations on the new show.
Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. So much to talk about, but let's begin with the BuzzFeed exclusive with regards to the Mueller probe. Just your general comments on the farrago that was the BuzzFeed story, and then I would love to get your take for our listeners on where we stand with the whole special counsel and what your expectations are, Tom.
Well, I think the BuzzFeed story is just a natural consequence of this out-of-control special counsel investigation that's been hanging over the president since, frankly, before he was president, because elements of it were obviously in place in 2016. And you've got this this atmosphere where you've got this special counsel that implies that the president has done something wrong. So when something like this comes out, however weak the story is, the media pounces. And on top of that, the story is still problematic in the sense that there were two federal law enforcement sources who were either lying or misstating documents that were something they should not have been doing. So there are potential crimes underlying the initial leaking that led to the story, if the story is to be believed at all, that the sources are being appropriately disclosed. But what a disaster, and it shows you that the special counsel is really ruining D.C. in terms of inhibiting the ability of the president to conduct business, and is really unhinging the way our government's supposed to be operating, in the sense that it's impacting negatively on the ability of the president to be president and do what he needs to do as president. And secondly, it's suggesting that there ought to be impeachment simply by its existence, as opposed to the fact that the president has done nothing wrong and there's no basis for impeachment.
Explain to the layman out there. I'm not a lawyer. I'm sure most of our listeners aren't. The whole office.
I'm not either. I just play one on TV.
You do it well. Explain to us what the whole office of special counsel is meant to do. My understanding is that there has to be some kind of conflict of interest inside DOJ or inside the administration. Doesn't there also have to be some kind of crime or predicate of a crime?
You would think. The special counsel regulations were put in place by the Clinton Justice Department after the independent counsel law was allowed to lapse. And it's designed, presumably, to allow the Justice Department to pretend to have an independent investigation, when, in fact, for instance, Mueller has 13, as the president says, 13 angry Democrats, most of whom were Justice Department employees or are Justice Department employees who have been detailed to his office. So, in many ways, it's kabuki theater, and I think we should be talking about it. The Justice Department is harassing the Trump presidency through the Mueller operation, and it needs to be shut down. And I don't buy into this idea that we should wait for the Mueller report. I think it's an abuse, and it needs to stop. And we don't need another dossier. We already have the fraudulent Clinton dossier. We don't need Mueller's version of the Clinton dossier. Let's shut it down.
But what about if this is an institution that's meant to obviate any conflict of interest? Doesn't Robert Mueller himself, forget the 13 Democrat donors that were in his team, doesn't he himself have a massive conflict of interest, given that the day before he was made special counsel by Rod Rosenstein, the acting attorney general, he interviewed for the job of director of the FBI with Donald Trump, and he failed in that interview? How could he, in a bipartisan or neutral fashion, investigate a person who he failed in front of less than a day before? Is that a stupid question, Tom?
No, it isn't. And presumably he, according to all reports, he's investigating the firing of Mr. Comey. Now, is he a witness in that? Is he going to investigate himself? Is he going to ask himself questions about his interviews or communications with the White House about potentially taking over as the FBI director again? You're exactly right. And of course, Rosenstein recommended the firing, essentially, of Mr. Comey. So he's another person who, for a time, was running and had appointed Comey. There's all sorts of conflicts. And frankly, the Justice Department, in my view, is in no position constitutionally to investigate the president for his official acts as president. I mean, you've got this absurd idea that the president fires the head of the FBI, and the retaliation is that same agency is going to investigate him.
Right.
He's the president. And if they think there's an abuse, Congress has all sorts of powers available to it. Instead, you've had the Justice Department hijacked to get back at the president, it looks like, and further target him because he had the temerity to fire the FBI director for misconduct that the president strongly believed the FBI director had engaged in.
Given what happened, we had incredibly uneventful hearings for the new Attorney General, William Barr. In comparison to recent hearings we've had, quite stunning, the lack of coverage, especially if we think about Associate Justice Kavanaugh. What do you think is going to happen when he is actually appointed with regards to the Mueller probe?
Well, Mr. Barr is close to Mr. Mueller personally. He's testified that he thinks that Mueller's probe should continue and end, and I don't think I see him reining in the Mueller probe. So I think we'll just see more of the same.
In that case, what do you think the fallout could be if the president takes your advice and tries to shut down the probe?
Well, in my view, he's protecting the presidency from being impaired by the Justice Department, which is harassing the presidency. And I don't think it's going to be any different than the Mueller report, which the left is going to use to incite for impeachment. And my view is if you're going to cause trouble defending the Constitution rather than just sitting around and waiting for Congress to try to abuse their powers to unlawfully remove you or to remove you contrary to the wishes the founders had for the impeachment power.
Well, that's a very constitutionally sound approach to what we should do with the Robert Mueller probe that seems to be never ending and costing us upwards of $30 million in just the last 2 years. You're listening to Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, who will be sharing with us some very, very interesting news with regards to none other than Hillary Clinton after the... It seems as if Mitch McConnell will be tabling a vote on the president's proposal for some kind of legislative protection for 3 years for the DACA children or the DACA recipients in exchange for wall funding. So Mitch is going to table it. Not only that, the White House is saying that the president will be holding his State of the Union address. Where? Wait and see. I think given our meeting with the president last week in the Oval, I think we can expect an interesting tweet or two on that subject of the State of the Union imminently. But back to our guest, Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Follow them at judicialwatch.org if you want to support a very worthy cause in terms of draining the swamp. You could give some kind of support to Judicial Watch, and also follow Tom Fitton at Tom Fitton, T-T-O-N. Tom, you are in the midst of suing the State Department over what exactly?
Oh, many things, but most importantly for purposes of this program is that we were suing for the Benghazi talking points information. And it was that lawsuit, that Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, that forced the government to disclose they had been hiding the Clinton emails from us, the American people, Congress, and everyone else all these years. And just recently, in fact, last month or so, Judge Horace Lamberth, the federal court judge, ruled that, look, it looks to him like he was hoodwinked. They attempted to hoodwink the court, and he called it one of the gravest modern offenses to government transparency. And it authorized Judicial Watch to take discovery on whether or not the Clinton email system was designed to thwart FOIA, and more specifically as well, whether the Benghazi scandal, that cover-up where they blame the video rather than the al-Qaeda terrorists behind it, was behind, and one of the reasons that we didn't know about the Clinton emails and the State Department didn't want to search her records was just something they were concerned about coming out.
Okay, so let's stop it. Let's just reiterate this because this is incredibly important. So the allegation is the whole private, unsecure email server that Hillary illegally set up could have been set up to deliberately obviate the Freedom of Information Act requirements for government records. When you get discovery, does this mean that we could find some of those missing emails, or is this to do with internal State Department documents that could prove that she was skirting the law?
Yeah, I think that's what, in part, the discovery might be able to find. Key State Department witnesses who knew about records at the State Department will have to be questioned under oath. On Benghazi, Susan Rice and Ben Rhodes. Susan Rice, the former Obama UN ambassador who went on 5 Sunday morning talk shows and lied about the Benghazi scandal, will have to answer our written questions under oath. Mrs. Clinton's lawyer, who was involved in destroying half of the emails she took from the State Department, will also testify under oath. So, this is just an incredible development for transparency and accountability on this issue. The American people want something done on it. Justice Department actually tried to thwart our efforts to get these questions answered. This Justice Department said, the deep staters, but thankfully Judge Horace Lamberth allowed our discovery to go forward, and we're going to start, as soon as the government shutdown ends, we'll get in full gear here.
Wow. Thank you to Judge Lambert. Thank you especially to you, Tom Fitton, and thank you to your whole team, Chris Farrell and everybody else. One of the few people outside government that is fighting the Obama holdovers, the swamp dwellers, and those who simply do not wish to be held accountable. Please follow Tom Fitton on Twitter at Tom Fitton, and also support judicialwatch.org. Wow. Thank you, Tom. Keep doing what you do. God bless you and the whole team. We've got a whole slew. Our board is lit up with amazing calls. We will be taking them momentarily. But first, a personal message from me. I challenge you, my dear listeners, to think of at least one thing that you no longer do that you wish you could. Do you miss a particular sporting activity, or long walks with your spouse, sleeping through the night? Are you ready to start living without pain? My colleagues, my friends here at Salem, Hugh Hewitt, Dennis Prager, Mike Gallagher, have been sharing with you their own personal successful stories of their experience with Relief Factor. Relief Factor is changing the lives of tens of thousands of Salem radio listeners right now by reducing and even eliminating their daily aches and pains. ReliefFactor.com, their website, is full of great success stories, and now I, too, am on board. Yes, I have started taking Relief Factor just over a month ago, and I can tell you that it works. For just $19.95, Relief Factor is offering a 3-week starter pack that could help you live your life with little to no pain. Go to relieffactor.com to see testimonials from all over the country that are getting testimonials from Americans that are getting their lives back with Relief Factor. And most important of all, over 70% of those who try this new starter pack continue and stay as Relief Factor customers. Feel the relief. Get back your independence and your freedom from the aches and pains of everyday life. Go now to relieffactor.com. I'm Sebastion Gorka. Our topic for today is the Covington incident. What is the major lesson learned for you, for all Americans? We're taking your calls here on 833-33-GORKA, G-O-R-K-A, 833-334-6752. Or if you prefer, you can write to us at our new website, sebgorka.com, and the email is info@sebgorka.com.
It either is or it isn't. When it comes down to it, that's all that really matters when choosing a certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz. It's either certified by Mercedes-Benz factory-trained technicians or it isn't. It's either backed by an unlimited mileage warranty for up to 5 years or it isn't. It's absolute confidence in 30,000 precision parts, or it isn't. The Mercedes-Benz Certified Pre-Owned Sales Event, now through February 28th, only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer. Come in today and we'll help cover your first month's payment. Offer available through Mercedes-Benz Financial Services. There are those who settle for nothing less. For them, the choice is simple. It's either up to Mercedes-Benz standards, or it isn't. It's flawlessly maintained, or it isn't. It's either Mercedes-Benz Certified Pre-Owned, or it isn't.
See your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for complete details and limitations on credit towards your first month's payment and certified pre-owned warranties.
And not to
Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness. And it's easier than ever with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Just pay shipping and handling. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word CURL to 797979. Finally, a formula that boosts total testosterone. If your results with Ageless Male Max are too intense, please decrease use. For your free bottle, text CURL to 797979. Text CURL to 797979.
Greg Clugston, SRN News, the White House.
Wally Hines, SRN News, Capitol Hill.
SRN News covers breaking stories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have correspondents at the U.S. House, Senate, and the White House. And now you can get the news whenever you need it from the all-new SRNnews.com. National news, international, politics, religion, business, health, and sports. It's all at SRNnews.com. Stay informed. Stay connected. SRNnews.com.
Hey, over here.
What?
Right here in the back.
Where?
Over by the fence.
You? The bike?
Yeah, the bike. Right in the grass where the kids left me a while ago. You know how lonely it is being left day after day, not being able to cruise the reservation?
Pardon me?
Remember when you got me for the kids? You told them, no, you kids go have fun, enjoy the outdoors, and be careful.
Yeah?
I really miss it, especially when they put that playing card in my spokes, and I made a really cool sound the faster we went. Well, could you get my tires a little air, dust off my seat, and remind the kids how fun I still am?
Okay. Oh, you are dusty.
Yeah, and I may need a couple of bolts tightened too. Now let's go.
As Native American parents and caregivers, our encouragement to healthy lifestyles for our kids is helping them get outside and play. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov/Indian Country. Brought to you by USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
I'm not sure who exactly the man-eater is in this scenario. Maybe it's all those pink hat-wearing ladies on the mall. Maybe they think of themselves as man-eaters. Let's go to your calls. The board is full. Line 4, Marianne in New Jersey, waiting patiently. Are you still there?
Oh, yes, I am. It's
Hi.
a privilege to speak to you. Thank you.
Don't mention it. Welcome aboard. So, what do you think about the events of this weekend?
Well, I have personally experienced, I worked in the pro-life movement for almost 25 years, and I've taken groups to the marches. And I want to say that what happened to those young teenagers was right out of the left-wing playbook. This is what they do every time I went. I experienced one in particular at the Supreme Court when the National Organization for Women, when we got to the end of the parade, they had a group of women with the rainbow balloons and everything, and they start verbally abusing our teenagers, and they say all kinds of things to provoke, and we are taught that we cannot answer, that we look ahead, and that we pray. And That's exactly what this young man did. And so he was following the rule book right to the T, and that was a total setup, and they do it every year.
Yep, I believe you, Marianne. Thank you so much for doing what you do for the last decade. It is wanton provocation. They wish for us to respond, and the self-control of this 17-year-old boy was truly exemplary. Thank you for your call. Let's go to line 2, Rick in California. Rick, are you there?
Well, thank you so much. I am Dr. Gorka.
Welcome.
This young man, there's a word in Yiddish we call mensch.
Oh,
literally,
yes.
Literally it means man. Figuratively, it means a decent person. This kid was a mensch. And the thing that frustrated the left so much is if there's not racism there, and they can't manufacture it and manufacture an incident, that drove them more nuts than if there actually was racism there. Did you notice that?
Rick, I think this is an incredibly important point. Thank you. He truly is a mensch. He is a true human. I don't know about you. I don't know how old you are. If I was 17 or 16 years old again, there is no way on God's green earth that I could resist for 15 minutes, 5 minutes, somebody banging a drum in my face. There's no way. That boy showed such self-control. It was very, very impressive. Rick, I think that's one of the best descriptions we could have for who that young man is. Thank you for your call. Let's go to line 1. Jolene in Cleveland. Jolene, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Gorka.
Hi.
I just had to say, my heart aches for what's happening to these boys and for what their families are going through. And, of all the groups in question on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, those boys were the only ones that were not marching for themselves. And I think people need to think about that for a minute.
That's very good. That's very good. They were doing what we are taught to do, to live for something larger than yourself. That's why they were there, even when they were affronted, even when they were called heinous, disgusting names. What did they do? They asked for permission from their elders to chant one of their spirit chants, to push back on the hatred with their own love. And they kept it. They kept their control. They kept their dignity. Who lost their dignity? Every single person who has piled on in the last 3 days. Thank you, Jolene, for your wonderful call. Let's go to line 3, Cindy in North Carolina. Cindy, are you with us?
Yes, I am, and I'm so glad that I got to get on with you. Congratulations on your show, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess the point that I had, and after looking on Twitter and being on Twitter all weekend and reading about this, it was just disgusting to me the way that they continue to portray these boys who, could be doing 1,000 other things but happened, decided to go and march, on the March for Life. And they portrayed them so negatively and falsely. And yet there was also another march that occurred this weekend the Women's March.
Yes.
And the signs that I saw out there were disgusting, and the behavior of some of these people was
So you were there?
disgusting.
You were there? You saw the Women's March?
Oh, are you kidding me? I would never go there.
Oh, you mean you saw it on the media?
Yes, on the media. But it was portrayed so positively, and they try. You can tell that they try to hide some of the signs and that are the vulgarities. Of course, it was not as bad this year because it was only attended by 10,000 people. But I mean, last year, when the president was inaugurated, it was horrendous. But not a negative word about the march.
Of course. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for calling. Don't be a stranger. Let's go to line 4. Oh, Regina. I remember receiving a call from Regina in Los Angeles. Is it the same Regina?
Yeah, no, it's not the same. It's my first time, and congrats on your wonderful show.
Thank you.
I'm enjoying it every day. And being from Soviet Union, I know exactly how you feel, and I feel the same way. Unfortunately, Republicans are wusses. We're not pushing back as hard as liberals and left does. They push back no matter what. At a little small thing, they will destroy you. But we, excuse me, I'm sorry, my apologies, enough already.
Regina, this is so important. You know what the big difference is? They don't want...
We have class. They don't.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you for calling. Too many people on our side want to please them. Give me an example of a leftist who ever wants to please the right, to grovel to the right, like the so-called conservatives we've seen groveling to the left in the last 72 hours. It never happens. We should think about that. These people who wish to be approved, to be seen as cool by the left. Do you understand what they're doing? This is no holds barred. There is a sight, there is a victory to behold politically, and one side is serious, and it's not ours. I'm Sebastion Gorka.
50 years later, the hate that cut your dad down is still nurtured by those forces of darkness. We saw it in Charlottesville as Klansmen and white supremacists literally, and neo-Nazis literally slunked out of their dark rooms, their digital hideaways, their crazed and vicious faces. Dr. King knows those faces well. Those same lost souls that once stood like cowards hooded behind burning crosses. They have been deliberately reawakened again, those forces. It's not an accident. They have been deliberately reawakened again.
Forces for violence, for hatred have been reawakened. Really, Uncle Joe? Let me give you another audio cut of some forces of violence. Those gunshots were recorded very close to where the studio is, at a baseball diamond where Republican congressmen were having a charity baseball practice. Until James Hodgkinson, a left-wing activist and Bernie Sanders volunteer, arrived with his SKS semi-automatic rifle and his Glock pistol. And when he was killed by the two brave Capitol Police officers who were there, they found a hit list on his body. And that hit list, Joe Biden, didn't contain any Democrat politicians, only Republicans. If there's any side of the political divide that has normalized violence in the last 5 years, it is the Democrat Party. Whether it's the Black Bloc, whether it's Antifa, or whether it's James Hodgkinson, political assassin, or attempted political assassin. This is how they distort reality. but we're not going to let them here on America First. I'm Sebastion Gorka, back with Ben Domenech next. The best guests, the best callers, here on America First.
Baseball today. It's the American way. Of course, the next best thing to a seat in the stands is a seat in front of a 19-inch RCA Victor television. One more day to Labor Day weekend. The traditional occasion for tasty outdoor barbecues or picnics.
agree with all the obstacles and with all the enemies who are between me and...
Bye.